what's going on in the world today, then you've come to the right place. Welcome to Southern Sense Talk Radio with your host, Annie, the Radio Chick Ubellis, and featuring Curtis C.S. Bennett and the most interesting guests that you'll find anywhere on Internet radio. So sit back, relax, and remember, Southern Sense is common sense.
All right, and welcome back to another adventure here, live on Southern Sense. I'm your hostess with the least mostest, the radio chickadee, Annie, along with my ever so effervescent and courageous co-host, Curtis C.S. Bennett. Good afternoon, Curtis, and happy inauguration. Curtis, you with me? Your camera just froze. Wait a minute, here you go.
Oh, yeah, it's a long time coming. Long time coming.
Well, I'm happy to let people know that we are live also now simulcasting on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, X. We're up on Rumble. Where else the heck are we also? There's a couple other places we're up listening live, but we're officially up and running on Rumble. So anyone that wants to join us there can. Special shouts out to our friend to the show, Sue from New Mexico, who has been not feeling well lately, and she's been in hospital therapy. She's had a hard time at it because obviously the hospital staff are Biden supporters, and she was not treated too well. So our prayers and our thoughts go out to her and hope that she has a swift recovery. That said, we've got a lot to talk about, a lot to do. We were going to have Beth Heath with us, We Can Be Heroes Foundation, but she had technical difficulties in trying to get into the show today. So we'll be talking about what she was going to be on here for. But she's loved and missed. I'm sorry she's not going to be with us today. We will have Mark Tapscott from the Epoch Times with us at the start of the show. It's his bi-monthly visit. And we're also going to have back with us Steve Gorham. He is the author of, just had a brain fart. The Green Breakdown, The Coming Renewable Energy Failure. He'll be joining us for the second half of the show. So we got a lot to talk about and a lot to do here, Curtis. And Curtis, you may have a problem with your camera because you're frozen again. All right, well, we'll go forward from here. Beth would have been joining us, Beth Heath from We Can Be Heroes Foundation, because what they do is work with individuals that are military, veterans, first responders, and bring them to the prominence. But they also have a special heart for the veterans. And they have started to work with the Special Operations Transition Foundation, SOFT. And for those that are familiar with special operations, when they come back, they have a hard time assimilating back into our lives because they're out there. They're putting their lives on the line 24/7, doing harrowing things that we could never even imagine. And when they come back and they no longer have their buddy system, they need help to come back into society. So the Special Operations Transition Foundation helps these men and women to come back into society. And they're having a fundraiser on January 30th of this month, which is just next Thursday. It's going to be at the Lodge, and I'm trying to read my own handwriting. The Lodge and Club at Ponte Verde in Florida. The tickets can be found at wecanbeheroesfoundation.org. And Curtis, you're involved with that. They're going to have a special guest over there, former Navy SEAL Commander Dave Sears, who will be hosting and speaking there, correct?
That's correct. And that would be in Ponte Vedra Beach area. On the 30th.
And and the event started off. I'm sorry. I was just going to say the event started off at 11 in the morning with the shooting experience with Green Berets, Navy SEALs, and Marine Raiders. And it'll give you access to the event. Tickets are limited. There's also a VIP cocktail party in the afternoon with the main event starting at 6 o'clock in the evening. So tell them what this is all about, Curtis.
Well, it's all about getting the word out about our veterans and what we as an organization do on behalf of our veterans, especially our World War II veterans, Vietnam and Korean War veterans, um, who have not received really the support that our more recent veterans are receiving. Of course, in some cases, there are records that are missing, no fault of the veterans, and we, like I said, we advocate for them. We have active duty veterans active duty members who actually are receiving food stamps and things like that. So we have efforts that we undertake to send them food and clothing and whatnot. And it's just so sad under the past 4 years that this has been allowed to happen to our brave and our most, courageous warriors. But I expect all that to change, and some of the things that we doing and having these luncheons and things are to help put the spotlight on our veterans.
No, I hope so. I mean, the previous administration gave more attention to illegal aliens, as even criminal illegal aliens, give them more latitude than they would to our own American citizens. And especially
And
if
that's
you
true.
are a military and veteran. It's disgraceful where military veterans, retirees, were being kicked out of their apartments, hotel rooms, or facilities to make room for illegal aliens. We have an untold number
And get
of illegal aliens in our country residing in government-provided housing, but we have our veterans homeless on the street. This is inexcusable.
and get this. I think it's been over 8,000 active duty members during the Biden administration who were forced out because they refused to take the jab, and but none were ever required of the illegals that came in the country, and they got the
No,
red carpet treatment.
no.
But
And they
our
were
warriors
placed,
were booted out because they stood up for their rights.
and yeah,
They weren't allowed to
and
say, "It's my right, it's my body,"
exactly, exactly. And, you have these illegal aliens being placed in schools right next to our children. And we see now the rise in the number of tuberculosis, measles, rubella, uh, leprosy, whooping cough, things that we've never seen in this, we have not seen for decades. Some of it for more than a quarter or half a century.
Smallpox.
And now, with the influx of these people that are not screened medically, much less criminally, that we're seeing this is not what our founding fathers intended. This is definitely not what our founding fathers intended when they gave us and gifted us this land. And it is time that we start taking it back. And President Trump has already started the deportations by aircraft already. And we need to step into the breach ourselves. He's in North Carolina today. He's heading, I believe, into Tennessee and to LA. In North Carolina, Hurricane Helene hit on September 27th. And I remember that date specifically because it was the wedding anniversary of my parents. Had my father still been alive, oh geez, it would be 72 years that they would have been married. And it's a day that sticks in my mind. And from that day forward, the people in North Carolina have been crying out for help. FEMA? Oh, you send us the bills and we'll see about reimbursing you. Oh, we'll give you $770. We were talking last week that people were getting kicked out of the hotels because FEMA no longer was extending the vouchers. And now the hotel people that extended as far as they could beyond FEMA said, listen, we're a business. We need to allow our customers to come back in. And they're kicking them out now. But hey, they're there to make business. They're there to earn money. They can only do charity just so far when they have to be able to help support their own families. That's understandable. I can't blame them. Between September to now, 3 solid months, these business owners and hotels have been helping to support these men and women and children and pets. But if you looked at the videos that was streaming today live
You know,
and the massive devastation, this makes a war zone look peaceful. And it's going to take decades for these people to recoup.
you know, we have bases and we have VA facilities with a lot of empty spaces. Those that we shut down, these bases, I think they should turn them into like emergency type shelters for people in national emergency cases, um, so they have somewhere to go when your house
Yes.
burns down because of like what's happening in California, or if it gets flooded out. You need to go somewhere, and hotels aren't really the place that you should go to.
No.
And
But
we have
but
military bases that are just sitting there empty,
yeah. Well, and this is
and they
something
should
that maybe we can.
utilize them
This,
or have them,
this,
you know, um,
well, Curtis, maybe this is something that you and Beth can look into with We Can Be Heroes
yeah,
to help house these homeless veterans. That not only just this fundraiser to help the special op
right,
veterans reintegrate themselves into society, but you guys also go out there and feed the homeless veterans and help them with clothing and everything else. You're out there working in the community
right.
to help homeless veterans. And wecanbeheroes.org is a good organization to donate to. So if you are within the sound of my voice, or if you are watching us here, go to wecanbeheroesfoundation.org and make a donation. It can be as little as $5. That's not going to break your bank account, but it may help a homeless veteran, or it may help a special operations veteran to reincorporate themselves back into family, friends, and society. I mean, it's an important organization, and I think we should give at least 5 minutes of our time to it.
Oh yeah.
And you
Yep,
work with them
it
too
is,
closely,
and
don't you,
there are
Curtis?
other organizations out there, but yes, I do when I'm available. Of course, I live like an hour and so many minutes from Jacksonville, that area, but I get up there when I can, and I'm one of their spokespersons. So yes, I've been involved with them for about 3 or 4 years now. But it's a good organization. It's a worthy one, and like I said, we need to get to a point in this country where we can take care of people in times of national disasters and things like that. I know Trump today or yesterday said something about possibly getting rid of FEMA or gutting it out and re focusing it on other things. But right as it stands now, it's a failure. FEMA.
It is. It is. And we don't have the ability with government
It
assistance
is.
to help our homelessness here, much less the homeless veterans, which should be our priority, or helping to
Hmm.
integrate our military men and women back into family, friends, and society, which is what this special operations transition organization is about. And again, folks, just go to wecanbeheroesfoundation.org. And Curtis, it brings to mind maybe something you and I should look into doing onto our webpage. For these organizations that we help promote, maybe we should have a donation page that people can go to, that as we talk about these groups that we do
Oh yeah.
support, they can go onto our homepage, which is southernsense.net, and then make a donation through that page. So we're going to work on doing that in the next couple of weeks, get a page
Mhm.
up for those organizations that we do promote here on the show, that people can give either time or money to help assist.
The need exists because, I mean, think about it. We have, like I said, active duty members, mostly at the lower ranks. I would say E4 and below, and they're struggling. Like I said, some of them have to be on food stamps, collect food stamps, and the reason being is that they don't make a whole lot of money. We really don't give them the pay raise that they deserve. Everybody talks about the minimum wage, but we got active duty members who are barely making it. And that's because they get transferred overseas. They don't live a stable life. They get shipped all around the country, and it's just hard for, especially if you have a young spouse and children, for them just to automatically go out there and get a job. So usually it's just that one service member that's bringing in the income. So they're struggling. The government has to do more to help these families procure jobs and a decent, income. And I'll advocate for that to my last breath, because when I came in, it was kind of like, I was at the low end of things and only had one income coming in because I got orders to Orlando for about 2 years. And my wife was pregnant, so she couldn't really work those last couple of months and whatnot. So it was a struggle. And there was nowhere I could go to address this. There was nothing in place
No.
in the military where young couples could go and say, hey, I need help. Now, there were programs out there, but at that time, they didn't really tell you. I found out from other people, you know,
Well, as a former
and I
military
think that's,
spouse,
that's
I
sad.
can,
Mhm.
as I said, as a former military spouse, I can attest to the hardships that can be going on. I was fortunate when I married my Marine. I had my own business, and I was also working on the side too. But still,
Mhm.
it was tough to make ends meet. And at one point, my ex-husband now mentioned about getting food stamps and other stuff. And I'm sorry, my pride said, no way. I'd rather work a second and third job as a spouse than, to go that route. And fortunately, we didn't have to go that route. We weren't blessed with children, so we didn't have to face a lot of the other hardships. But I watched the
Mhm.
military families around us, and yes, there are times you'd reach into your pantry and help your next door neighbor to make ends meet. The quiet things you do, to help your fellow military families. Um, we were able to do that. How families do it in today's economy, it's a normal family, much less a military family struggling to make ends meet. Because
Mhm.
you're not meeting the medium income of the rest of the country. You are below a medium income, in all honesty, unless you're up in
Mhm.
officer rank or something. So again, wecanbeheroesfoundation.org. Please, folks, go check it out and make a donation. Like I said, even if it is just $5, every little bit helps. Remember that $5 we gave to Ted Cruz got him elected senator. The $5 you can give to this organization will help a veteran. Well,
So true.
with that
So true.
with that said, and Beth Heath, I'm sorry that she could not be with us. There was a technical difficulty. But Beth, if you're listening, I hope we did you proud. And we hope that people give generously to you today. With that said, people that listen to us know that we start off each and every show with a dedication to a fallen hero. And today's dedication is going out to Deputy Sheriff Jesus Vargas of the Brazoria County Sheriff's Office in Texas. His end of watch was this year, Wednesday, January 15th. And this dedication is to him.
A Texas community is mourning the loss of a deputy shot and killed in the line of duty, while also hoping for a speedy recovery for a canine officer wounded in the manhunt for the suspected killer. Authorities in Houston say it all began when they tried to serve a warrant for Robert Lee Davis, who was wanted on multiple charges. Surveillance video shows officers approaching Davis at a strip mall before he allegedly opens fire, killing Deputy Jesus Vargas, a 17-year veteran.
He's a pillar to the community and also our department. He's a positive guy. He's certainly left a hole here in our agency.
Hours later, Rocky, a U.S. Marshal canine, picked up a scent and led them to a dumpster where Davis was hiding. According to authorities, Davis fired shots as Rocky closed in, hitting the dog twice in the neck. Officers returned fire, killing Davis.
Suspect succumbed to his injuries inside the dumpster.
Responders then carrying Rocky to a helicopter to rush him to an animal hospital, where the 1-year-old Belgian Malinois is recovering. This image showing an emotional officer on one knee as Rocky is hooked up to an IV. A doctor who treated Rocky says the bullet bullets narrowly missed the dog's spine and vital organs, calling Rocky the luckiest dog I've seen, adding that bullet could have ended his life instantly, and it didn't. The case raising awareness of efforts in at least 6 states to mandate longer prison sentences or bigger fines for harming or killing police dogs. Andrew Dimbert, ABC News, New York.
Watch breaking news on YouTube. Subscribe to ABC7 Chicago Eyewitness News.
Law enforcement members area-wide are remembering Deputy Jesus Vargas as a dedicated public servant. He was a member of the U.S. Marshals Gulf Coast Violent Offenders Task Force and sadly now leaves behind a loving wife and children.
Devastating day for the law enforcement family and for his family. Trayson Bragg joins us live outside Bentop Hospital where the deputy was taken and later died. Trayson, tough blow for the community of law enforcement.
Absolutely. You all said it perfectly there. I mean, a tough blow for the law enforcement community, a tough blow for our entire community. This is news obviously none of us want to hear. And as you mentioned, after the shots rang out this morning, Deputy Vargas was brought here to Ben Taub Hospital. He was in that emergency room. And at some point, right around 3:30 this afternoon, a medical examiner's vehicle took his body to the Harris County Medical Examiner's office, followed by a large procession of dozens of law enforcement officers, both from here in Harris County and from Brazoria County as well. Now, what do we know about Deputy Vargas? We know that he was a 17-year veteran of the Brazoria County Sheriff's Office. Again, as you mentioned, a father of 3, and he leaves behind a loving wife. We also know, yes, he was a part of the Gulf Coast Violent Offenders Task Force. But we're learning more about who he was as a person, as a man, and as a law enforcement officer from the Brazoria County Sheriff's Office. In a post on social media, they call him a dedicated public servant known for his integrity, compassion, and commitment to our community, calling Deputy Vargas as well more than a team member, saying that he was a friend, a mentor, and an inspiration to everyone he knew. Now, I will say I spoke to the Brazoria County Sheriff, Bo Stallman, off camera today, and he was visibly shaken, obviously, by what took place today. Hear what else he had to say about his fallen deputy. Today is an awful and tragic day for the community, for our county. Mr. Vargas was a 17-year veteran with the department and served very dedicatedly. Now, we also want to point out as well that Chief Noe Diaz of the Houston Police Department also said today about Deputy Vargas that he died doing God's work, that he died working to make this community a safer place. Words that I think none of us will forget anytime soon. I'll send it back to you all.
We'll take it from here. Trayson Bragg tonight outside Bentop Hospital. Thank you.
Let it be said, when we finish this race, we kept them free, we led with grace. Let it be seen, from sea to shining sea, beautiful America, living our legacy. Oh, father, mother, sister, brother, oh, we gotta learn to love each other. Oh, for the soul of the nation, for the next generation. Let us be known as people of honor, humble and bold, faithful through fire. Let us hold firm to our convictions with wide open hearts, eager to listen. Oh, father, mother, sister, brother, oh, our time has come. We gave them hope, we made them strong. Let it be said, when we finish this race, we kept them free, yeah, we led with grace. Sister, brother, oh, we gotta learn to love each other, oh, for the soul of the nation, for oh, the next generation.
All right, and we're back. You're here watching Southern Sense live everywhere on the internet. And Curtis, you've got to unmute yourself on your end. Okay, there we go. You can find us up in Facebook, LinkedIn, I said Facebook, YouTube, X, as well as Rumble, and a couple other different places. I'm thinking, I know we're up on Getter, and I forget what the other one is, but these are live simulcasts at this moment. Very happy to be on Rumble. We got a total of 4 viewers, even though we're brand new. So hopefully folks will start going over to Rumble too and check us out over there. We've got Mark Tapscott calling in a few moments here. We were talking earlier about what was going on, Trump visiting North Carolina. He's been making a lot of changes. And ironically, he's not even in office now going on 4 days as of 12 noon. And already there are people putting out impeachment things out there. There's a website called impeachtrumpagain.org has already been demanding that Congress look at articles of impeachment. You got to be kidding me. 4 days in office. Can you believe that? I think we lost Curtis. Either his screen froze or something like that. Curtis, it looks like you are frozen. There seems to be a problem on your end. You may have something open in the background eating up your memory on your computer. Anyway, they're demanding that Trump be impeached, saying that not only is disqualified from the presidency, but he has already violated the Constitution. He's saying that they are saying that when he took office as president, he was supposed to divest himself. Get the words incorrectly, Anne Marie. Divest himself of all of his holdings. But usually when people ascend to the presidency, they place whatever they're controlling, their businesses, whatever, they place them in someone else's hands. They actually have no hands on to the business or investments. Someone else handles that with them. So they have absolutely no idea what's going on. Their money is being handled separately by some other firm or whatever. So that way they have no interference with the office of the president, which we know Donald Trump has done. He's placed his stuff in his son's hands or in his management company, but they're saying he should be impeached on this. They're also saying he committed campaign finance crime in this campaign. And they're also hearkening back to the 2020 election cycle, saying that he should be charged with crimes under that also. So, folks, he's not even in office 4 days in his new term, and they're already trying to impeach Donald J. Trump again. I don't know if you caught any of that, Curtis. And Curtis, can you hear us?
No.
No, we can hear you. But as I was saying, this
Yes.
organization, Impeach Trump Again,
Can you hear
has
me?
already. Yep, we got you. We got you. You've got no sound on their end. You cannot hear me. If there's anyone there in the chat room, it says we keep both blocking out. It seems there is a problem with the internet, and I can't switch my internet because once I have this open, I can't close it. So guys, if you can hear me and you're in our chat room here on StreamYard or in Facebook, whatever, post in there whether or not you can hear my microphone, because obviously Curtis can't hear it. And I'm hoping that someone will post that you can hear me. All right, I'm just going to post it. Can you hear me, Annie? And here we go. We got Mark Tapscott with us. So let's see if he can hear us. Hi, Mark. Can you hear me?
Yes, indeed. Can you hear me?
Yes. And then we got a problem on Curtis's end. That's what we were trying to figure out.
Hey, Curtis.
There's nothing like live. No, he keeps freezing out. There's a problem on his end. All right, that's all right. We'll just keep on going. Hey, man, I'm watching the inauguration. It was fascinating. I've actually never seen anything like that before, and I'm sure you're going to say the same thing. Normally, you see the president get sworn in, he'll make a speech, and then he'll go in and maybe make a second speech, and that's it. And that's the last you see or hear. They go from party to party to party to party. Yeah. But you don't see him. What was it, 5 different speeches he made?
I lost count. It was a bunch. He had a lot of things to say, as he usually does. I have to say of the official inauguration address right after he was sworn in, that he stayed with his text all the way through. He didn't wander off the text, and I thought that made it a very effective speech, especially when he was, shall we say, criticizing Biden and Kamala with them sitting right there. That was an interesting scene.
Yes, it was. It was. But I thought he was very low-keyed, very staid. He tried to stay very dignified, and I thought he made off with that, even though there was a lot of comments about Melania's hat. And whether or not he got a bruise on his head when he tried to kiss her cheek from the brim of the hat.
Yeah. That hat reminded me of one of the characters in The Magnificent Seven, or one of the classic Westerns. I can't think of the actor's name now, but anyway, it's exactly the same kind, you know.
I can picture. I'm going to say Lee. Oh God.
One of the bad guys.
Yeah.
Lee Van Cleef.
That's I said. The name Lee just popped into my head. Just popped into my head. Well, we see the Senate is going forward with the confirmation hearings, and they seem to be sailing pretty smoothly.
Pretty much.
One of the things I had a problem with was Lee Zeldin for EPA chief, because he's gone wishy-washy on us. I'm just wondering why that was a choice he made when Trump may be known that he wasn't with climate change.
That's the first I've heard of that. I have to confess, I did not catch any of Zeldin's confirmation hearing, but what specific issues are you referring to?
Well, being a former New Yorker, I actually sent a note to a friend saying South Carolina, but Lee Zeldin is New York. He co-sponsored the Carbon Capture Improvement Act and encouraged carbon capture technology. While he supported some renewable energy initiatives, like extending solar investment tax and offshore wind potential, he has done other things like voting against the Clean Air Act. So on one hand, he sounds like he's following the same path Trump wants. On the other hand, he's at the same time saying like, well, I kind of like agree with climate change. So that's why I was curious why Lee Zeldin, of all people, I had thought of a couple other different people that I thought would have been far better to go in there, like my friend from the CO2 Coalition, Gregory Wrightstone, climatologist, a geologist that is heading the coalition. Another one, an off the wall choice, I would have thought John O'Connor. He was the brain fart. I'm going to say district attorney. No, not district attorney. A U.S. attorney for Northern California. He was involved with the Patty Hearst case. Also, he wrote the book about Deep Throat and the media and all the lies they were telling about Watergate. He also is a Californian. He is very much involved and has had several opinion pieces dealing with the California wildfires and how climate change is not the cause of it. I thought he would have been a perfect person because he's got some government experience. He's also got the law experience to know how to handle regulations, but he also has the climate experience.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there were other choices other than Lee Zeldin in that place.
Well, I have, as I said, I frankly have not kept up with that particular one. I've been focused on several of the others, and you may be right for all I know. One thing I do know is with every president, there are when they make their first cabinet picks and their major appointments, invariably there are some of them in there that people who have a real passion about a particular candidacy in a particular administration are going to be disappointed in. And there's going to be others that, they're all super ecstatic with. I have to say, I was a little puzzled at first by the Hegseth nomination, but the way the thing has developed so far and the other cabinet choices that he's made, I think it seems to me, I mean, I'm not a senator, so I don't have a vote on it, but it seems to me he's done a pretty good job of putting together a pretty talented team, it appears.
I mean, Pam Bondi gets up there and I'm just cheering left and right. And she has a way of bee slapping with grace and talent and courage. Pete Hegseth, his comeback to Elizabeth Warren about, Madam, I'm not a general.
I'm not a general. That was good. Yeah. And that's the kind of, blunt honesty that Washington needs more of. I'm very confident about her. The one that I think is going to be the real explosion is going to be Kash Patel next week, because that's how you doing, Curtis?
Yeah, Curtis is now back.
All right,
with us.
hey, Mark.
He's now back in the land of the living.
Good. Kash Patel, you've heard almost nothing about him from the Democrats since the nomination was announced, and that tells me that they've got something that they're gonna spring next week when the confirmation hearing convenes. And because they are scared of Kash Patel.
Yeah, and rightfully so. Because I was talking with Curtis prior to you coming on. There's a group out there. There's a website called Impeach Trump Again, and they're already trying to get Congress to write articles of impeachment against. He's only in there 4 days.
Yeah,
but they're pulling up stuff from 2020. They're pulling up stuff from the current campaign, and now they're claiming that he's got financial interest in foreign governments. As president, he's going to benefit. I mean, the stuff they're pulling on him, it's not even 1 week in, and already.
Well, but I think the big difference between 2024 and 2020 is that kind of approach to dealing and responding to Trump. It worked in 2020, but it doesn't work now. You look at the changes in the demographics of his supporters, big increases in Black voters, big increases in Hispanic voters, huge increases in young voters. he got tremendous support from voters in households with a household income of 50,000 or less. I mean, it's just dramatic how different it is from 2020. And I think that's in great part due to the fact that people figured out a lot of the stuff that you hear about Trump. It just it doesn't check out,
No, it doesn't.
It amazes me that there are some who think the Democrats will finally, learn their lesson and get with the program. But I believe they know no other way but to resist.
Yeah.
And that's what they're doing, resisting. They are the resistance.
Yeah.
Everything they try to inflict on Trump is things that they've done and got away with.
Yeah.
It's almost like, okay, they went after him with the Justice Department and lawfare and everything. But please don't do that against us.
Yeah. It's interesting. I did some reporting this week on the.
Oh, you worked?
Yeah, I did actually. I showed up for a change. Some reporting on Trump's. There's 6 or 7 executive orders that if he really can follow through with them and make them effective, are going to be a fundamental reform in the federal career civil service. And the immediate reaction, which of course, I knew was going to come from the Democrats in Congress, was he's politicizing the civil service, which has always been their response to when Ronald Reagan tried to reform the civil service. The response was, you're trying to politicize it. Well, in fact, it's already politicized. And today, part of the reporting that I did this past week, there was a survey of 500 senior federal career managers, all living in the national capital region, which means they're in policymaking positions. 42% of them said they were going to actively oppose Trump's policies. Well, that's exactly contrary to what the civil service is supposed to be, which is professional. We carry out the agenda of the elected president, regardless of what we think about it personally. We're here to serve the public. And yet we see it's already politicized. So what they accuse Trump of doing, they have been doing for years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. All along. I know, Mark, that you're on a tight schedule and everything, because I see our next guest already in. The one thing I do say is that has happened that was good is Lincoln Riley Act has passed.
Yeah, finally. Yeah. And it got some significant Democrat votes, which was good.
So it looks like we're going to see more of a bipartisan Congress than we have ever seen in the past 20 years.
Let us hope.
Yes. From our lips to God's ears.
Yeah.
I'm not holding my breath.
Paris, you're too practical.
Well, Mark, it has been a pleasure. And we're going to see you back in 2 weeks because we'll have tons more to talk about.
Yeah, we will. We will have a lot to talk about. Y'all take care.
And hopefully you'll give us a little bit more time. Take care. Mark Tappan.
Stay warm up there.
See you later.
The epochtimes.com as well as hillfaith.org. Check it out, Hill Faith. Let's bring on our other guest, Steve Gorham. He is back with us. He's the author, and I'm always going to screw this up.
Hey, Steve.
Hi, Curtis. Hi, Ann.
Oh, man, I know. And I've read the book, too, and I don't know why I have a brain fart whenever I turn around and want to talk to it. And it's in the middle of my notes here. Go ahead, tell us the name of the book, because I'm going to mess it up.
Green Breakdown, The Coming Renewable Energy Failure.
And,
I've never been prophetic in my life, but this is the first time, and we are seeing this rolled out in real time here from the Trump administration right now.
Absolutely. And see, I even had a little thing there in the corner to have the book up there so people know what book I'm talking about. It would have helped if I put up there. We're talking about the wildfires and climate change and everything, and what I call gruesome Newsom out in California, the governor out there has been doing and not doing. But we also look at the devastation that we see with Hurricane Helene that came through. Um, and I hear people at times saying, oh, climate change did that. Well, climate change doesn't affect the path of a hurricane, but what man does on the landscape will also affect how a hurricane affects the land, correct? I mean, if we take down obstacles that would cause the hurricane to stay offshore, um, what do you expect but to see flattened houses like we see in North Carolina and Tennessee?
Yeah, I don't know that we have too much ability to control hurricanes. Building near the coast is not the best thing. But you know that Hurricane Helene that hit West North Carolina, that's almost an identical situation as to what happened about, I think it was 1917. Two hurricanes came in and within a week hit that same area in Western North Carolina and flooded the whole area. They called it the Great Flood of whatever the era was then. Very, very similar to what we saw this last year. And this is what nature does, and we need to adapt to it. The fires in California, much more powerful sign of what nature can do, but also there have been some issues that humans could have done a little bit better that have made the fires worse. And you're hearing about those in the press.
Oh, finally. I've been screaming about it. When I moved here to South Carolina, we had the wildfires coming up from Florida. And I remember growing up through the 60s and 70s, we used to talk about the good husbandry of the land. But for some reason or other, in the 1980s, the Forest Service stopped doing the controlled burns, which helped protect the forest, helped create new growth, helped protect the wildlife, did everything that the American Indians taught us to do to protect the land, and we stopped doing it. And then we blame climate change, or should we be blaming ourselves?
Well, you're right. That is a big factor in California. 10 of California's worst 20 fires have occurred in the last 10 years. But the question really is what is the reason? There was a group called the Little Hoover Commission that in 2018 studied the situation in California and pointed out that for about a century, the state has been suppressing all fires. And so the trees in the forests have gotten very, very thick, and there's a lot of brush around. There's a lot of dead trees. Timber harvesting is down 65% since 1980, and the environmental groups have been opposing timber harvesting. And then that same year, 2018, the U.S. Forest Service estimated there were 147 million dead trees in California. And so when you get these fires, they have so much fuel. And then in Southern California, really a strange nature situation. They're powered by the Santa Ana winds coming out of Nevada that are blowing 80, 100 miles an hour. And these fires get going and you just can't put them out. So Governor Newsom, as you've been saying, has been pointing out for about 5 years now that forest fires are due to global warming, but the evidence doesn't really support his concern. As a matter of fact, we've had data from NASA, the National Aeronautic and Space Administration, who tracks all fires globally using satellites. And their data shows that the global burned area is down about 20% in the last 2 decades. And so, we have global warming all over the world, but around the rest of the world, we're not having more fires. So it doesn't make sense that the fires in California can be due to climate change.
When I started doing the show some 15 years ago, I do remember doing a story in California. There was a comedic actor that had farmland in California, but the water supply to his farm was cut off to protect the Delta smelt. And I hadn't heard the Delta smelt being used in this until just recently. And I said, whoa, wait a minute. Wasn't that so-and-so's farm in California? We were talking about some 10 years ago that he lost his whole farm property, his whole farm business, as well as other farmers, because the waters was being withheld from them to protect some strange species. California used to be known for giving us, I think, something close to about 65% of our agricultural produce, avocados, lettuce, and things like that. We would come from California. Now we see it coming from Mexico, Guatemala, everywhere else, but from the United States. So the breadbasket of the United States, California, is no longer our breadbasket. Instead, it's a tinderbox because of poor care of the land.
Well, I think water is a contributing factor. And I'm not sure about Mr. Trump talks about bringing water down from the Sacramento area to the south. Maybe. I do know, though, that California, the population now, their population has been falling for about 5 years, but it grew for decades and decades, and it doubled over the last 50 years. And the water infrastructure really hasn't kept up with California. They really should be building desalination plants along the coast and reusing wastewater and doing a lot of other things. So, yeah, as we heard in these fires, they were short of water to put them out. Just another situation that where the state was apparently unprepared.
Steve, there's forecasts of rain coming this weekend to that area, but not everyone is welcoming the rain, and it's because they believe it's going to bring mudslides and things like that, over flooded rivers. And so my question is, what is the lesser of the two evils, the fires or the rain?
Tough question. I know rain can cause mudslides, and when you burn away the trees, there's nothing to hold the land anymore. So that could become a problem as well. Just a really tough situation, a terrible catastrophe. California needs to get onto the track of taking care of their forests to a much better extent, much more actively. And then, of course, I think the rest of the country needs to support them with some funds, as we do in all major disasters.
We've got the disasters on the East Coast, disasters on the West Coast, and those of us in the middle are caught paying for it. And because of California, that's just blatant mismanagement, flat out. Their electrical infrastructure has not caught up to what they needed. They're in an area where they know they are prone to these wildfires, and yet they won't bury the electrical lines to protect them. As a matter of fact, I think a couple of the fires were started by electrical sparks from the lines being compromised. We saw the same thing in Hawaii. A bad electrical line that just was not kept up by the electrical company started the fire in Lahaina. We're seeing the mismanagement of water, the mismanagement of the forest husbandry, as you said, not letting the lumber companies go in and harvest the forest. We see the dead that's coming in there, which causes insect infestation, which also increases the potential for wildfires that people don't understand. I'm sorry, you may like that little mosquito, but that little mosquito in that tree is helping to kill the tree and create more timber for a wildfire. People don't understand these things. And yet when you say, oh, you're harming the environment to protect the spotted owl, well, what about protecting the environment to protect human lives?
Yeah, the electrical lines are a factor as well. It's well known that high winds can cause branches to hit the lines and start fires. One of the crazy things, though, that the state is doing is they're building more and more transmission lines. I think the California Regulatory Agency was talking about having to spend $60 billion in the next 5 to 10 years on new transmission. And the big reason is they want to put in all this wind and solar, and wind and solar uses 100 times more land than a nuclear plant or a coal plant or a natural gas plant. You end up spreading these solar fields all over the place, these wind installations all over the place in remote locations. And then you got to build transmission lines out to all of them. It would be nice if we could bury them, but that is much more expensive than the traditional lines. So the push for renewable energy, most people don't talk about it, but is making the fire problem worse in California than it otherwise would be.
And people don't understand that. I mean, how could a solar farm cause more hazard than taking care of the forest through good husbandry? Because solar farms reflect heat, which goes back up into the atmosphere, which changes the atmospheric conditions. We're finding that where there are solar farms, that you may find weather vortexes. I mean, someone asked me recently, because there's one here in my own county, and they said, well, for the last several years, we didn't have these major rainstorms, but suddenly now it hits where I live and we go several blocks over and there's no storm. I said, you're living near the solar farm? Yeah, that's why. And people don't understand that, do they?
Well, maybe. I don't know. I haven't seen any conclusive evidence on that yet. I do know that putting up all these wind installations can actually slow down the wind around the world. I think we're seeing that in a number of places. And certainly if you put wind and solar over wide areas, you alter nature in that area, you alter what's going on with the climate and the vegetation and the animals. It may also be affecting the weather as well. That could be the case.
Well, it also, there's a whole farm that was a cornfield, major cornfield in the area, major producer. And suddenly now they have this big whole solar farm there. And then they're asking what happened to all the deer? Well, the deer are not going to reside in a solar farm, but they will reside near a cornfield. And they're asking all these questions like, well, what do you expect when you denude the land and place these poisonous panels up there? They're full of hazardous waste, things like arsenic and everything else. So when these panels break or go out of service, this is hazardous material. This cannot go to the regular landfill.
Yeah, they're sending most of it to landfills because it's much, much cheaper. I use the example of California. The federal government points out that it costs about $20 to $25 to recycle a solar panel, but you only get $4 worth of materials out of it. And then if you would just send it to a landfill, it costs about $1 or $2. So the economics are nowhere close to making any sort of sense. But places like California now, they have to replace old solar panels, and they got to find something to do with these. Just not a good situation. All sources of energy have their issues and their environmental issues. But we need to get back and quit worrying about carbon dioxide. That's where we've gone off the track with a lot of this effort.
You know, the CO2 level at the time of Christ walking on earth was much higher. The world was warmer. So why are we worrying about a couple of degrees temperatures here today?
It is true. Today's temperatures are not abnormally warm. We've had about 2 degrees Fahrenheit rise in 140 years. But there's many examples when it's been warmer in the past. During the time of Christ, as you say, when he walked on the earth, we had a period called the Roman warming. They were actually growing olives in central Germany at that time and making wine in England, which you really can't do those sorts of things today. So we've over the last 10,000 years, we've had many multi-century long periods when it's been warmer than today. But all of the headlines in the United Nations and other folks talk about we're in the age of global boiling, just very inaccurate.
Well, a previous guest we had on last week, I asked a question, and I'm sure you've got the perfect answer for it. And California loves their EVs. They also want these zero EVs, zero emissions vehicles. Number one, you can't build these EVs without creating emissions. You also need petrochemicals to help make these EVs for the wiring, for the tubing, for the upholstery, for all the other little knickknacks you have in the car to actually make the car, the tires and all. You need petrochemicals. So you still need to drill for oil. Sorry, guys, you need oil. Ladies, you wear lipstick, you need the petrochemicals. Your personal products to shampoo and everything else, you need petrochemicals. Your cell phone, you need petrochemicals. But yet people want to deny, say, no, don't drill for oil anymore. We've got to be energy efficient, zero emissions. Now we've got the wildfires going on in California. We do know that if these batteries in these EVs are compromised in any shape or form, they will explode. And you can't put these fires out using traditional fire equipment. You need special chemicals to do that. And these chemicals can be harmful to the environment at the same time as you're putting the fire out. So wait a minute, who's more environmentally responsible? Those driving a traditional a petrol car, or someone with an EV in the middle of a wildfire?
Yeah, not to mention all the mining that goes on for the EV batteries.
Oh, I was getting to that.
You mentioned these fires. We just had a big lithium battery fire at Monterey. just south of Silicon Valley in California. The Moss Landing storage facility was the biggest battery storage facility in the world. About 40% of it just burned down. And what California is trying to do is back up intermittent wind and solar with batteries. And these batteries are very big. A typical battery is hundreds of times larger than a car battery, and then they stack all these together. But these things are what they're trying to do is back up the wind and solar, store up energy, and then when the wind and solar isn't running, release it. But we've had these battery fires are happening all over the place. And by the way, they had 1,200 people that had to be evacuated near Moss Landing, and they told the people that weren't evacuated to close all your windows and keep your pets inside. They closed down roads. They also had one a few months ago just east of San Diego, and that one burned for 7 days. So it's these big lithium batteries are a problem, a bigger problem even than the automobile vehicles.
Well, I've been hearing also reports in New York because they've got these electric bicycles in New York, and they love the lithium batteries and the electrical bicycles. Well, I'm sorry, the battery is placed near the seat, right between the person who's riding the bike, between their legs. That's not where you want a fire to happen. And there's reports of injuries in New York City because the batteries aren't being taken care of, so they'll crack, or they'll take the bikes and they pull them inside their apartment doorway and cause a fire in the apartment. These batteries are not completely safe as people think they are.
Yeah, that's the biggest source of fires in New York City now is e-bike batteries, over 200 last year. So it's and people tend to buy low cost ones, and maybe they're not quite as good as the higher priced ones. Or even if you have a high quality battery, if you happen to bump it, damage it in any way when you're riding around, it might be, or hook it on a charger that doesn't work very well, then you have fire potential as well. Again, we need to learn how to control some of this, but part of the problem, again, is state governments, federal governments are pushing us to use these batteries and with wind and solar just well before it's time. Not a good thing for what we're trying to do with society.
Well,
my understanding is that they don't even allow lithium batteries to be stored in cargo spaces on passenger planes. I think it has something to do with that. What was it, Flight 800 that just blew up over New York. And
yeah, they ask you, what's in your baggage? Do you have any batteries? Yep.
Yeah. Well, now in Puerto Rico, when it was recovering from, I think it might have been Hurricane Maria, lost power to the island. And one of the reasons why is they decided to do more green energy in Puerto Rico. So they decided to go with wind, but they never hooked up through the traditional power plant to the green energy power. Should the green energy power go down, they had no backup. So now the people in Puerto Rico for the longest time were without power. Now we had Hurricane Helene come in, and they had a similar situation because they didn't fully hook everything up. So we have a problem there. Green energy, these solar and wind, does not provide enough power to power our communities. What we have with the traditional power, like coal, oil, water, whatever, nuclear, we can power more people in a smaller using a smaller power plant covering a smaller area, and 90% more people than with green energy. Only 10%, correct? Am I getting that
and that's
right?
well, one of the big topics I'm talking about recently is how 2025 may be the year that dooms green energy. And we have four big factors that are coming in that are involved with this. One is Trump administration policies, which we should talk about. The second is the rising demand for electrical power, which wind and solar does not provide enough to handle. The third is the electric vehicle problems and slowdown. And finally, just wind, solar, and battery problems themselves, which we've been talking about some. But Puerto Rico also had a lot of their wind turbines were destroyed by a hurricane that came through. And, we want to put these all over the East Coast if Mr. Trump doesn't stop it. And those are going to be very vulnerable to tropical storms and hurricanes as well.
You know, I remember reporting when they were putting up the wind farms off the coast of Africa, and everyone's saying, "Oh, how wonderful this is! We're putting these wind farms off the coast of Africa." And then we started to hear about these, what do you call it, beaching of whales and other marine mammals off the coast of Africa. And they said, "Oh no, it's just a migratory path." Now we're seeing that they're putting them off the coast, our East Coast,
Yeah.
and where we may have had maybe one or two beachings over a 10 or 20-year period, we're seeing 20 in a 1-year period.
No,
There's
there's
something
quite a few.
about the vibrations of these wind towers that causes the change in patterns of living creatures, not just sea mammals, but the human creature too.
Well, it may be the sonar as well. They do this. They use this sonar mapping of the shore off the coast to figure out where to put these towers. And of course, whales use their own sonar, and they think that it may be fouling them up, doing all this pinging to figure out where to put the towers and do this construction. So, none of this is really for sure yet. But as you say, the number of beachings has gone up in New Jersey. Right near our second home in Virginia Beach, we had a whale wash up last year, wash up on the shore. So we are seeing more of these than we have in the past.
Well, another thing is that the more we need power for is the birth of AI. Now we have
Yes.
the birth of AI requires these large facilities that requires a lot more power than you can get off of green energy. So we're seeing now AI looking for places. South Carolina is looking to reopen our coal and nuclear plants. Thank you, guys, for finally listening to us. They're still not willing to drill off the coast. And I've been saying drill, baby, drill for the last 15 years. But we're seeing people are starting to realize traditional power plants may not be as nasty as the greenies want us to think.
Well, U.S. demand for power has been flat for 2 decades, about 4.2 million gigawatt hours. But all of a sudden, we have all this demand, not only the green programs to try and push a switch to electric vehicles, heat pumps instead of gas appliances, but as you say, artificial intelligence. When you upgrade a data center from just doing what do I want to say, cloud storage and running the internet, you require 6 to 10 times more electricity in that data center with new servers you put in to run AI. And they're doing this all over the country. In Texas, for example, they just upped their forecast. In 2023, they had a load of 85 gigawatts. It was a record. And now they're saying they need to roughly double that within 5 years. And nobody knows how to do that. The Texas governor, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick said, quote, "We want data centers, but it can't be the wild, wild west of data centers and crypto miners crashing our grid and turning the lights off." They're having all these problems. In Atlanta, they want to build a huge number of data centers. I understand the city of Atlanta itself is trying to ban data centers in its area. And so they're building these outside Atlanta and outside counties, just vast amounts of these. And we're seeing needs in Virginia, all over the country, really, because of the tremendous electricity that AI wants to use. So as you say, what this is going to do is a couple big things. First, we're going to stop shutting down coal and gas and nuclear power plants. And we're already seeing that. They're restarting the Palisades, Michigan nuclear plant that was closed 2 years ago. They've extended the life of the Diablo Canyon plant in California. And Microsoft has a contract to try and restart one of the 3 Mile Island plants in West Pennsylvania, all to get enough power to run artificial intelligence. We also see coal-fired plants extending operations. 2 plants extended in Utah, 2 in Wyoming, 2 plants being extended in West Virginia, and they're considering other states as well. And so the green people are going, wow, this is terrible. We need wind and solar, but wind and solar can't handle this kind of a need.
Until they turn around, they find they can't recharge their cell phone or their EV.
And we could run out. It's going to be, the other thing that's going to happen is it's going to raise everybody's electricity prices, because there's no way you can build these plants very fast. Nuclear plants take about 10 years to build. The big winner could be natural gas. You can build a pretty big natural gas plant in 3 years. And there are more than 200 natural gas plants in planning or under construction in the U.S. And that's, you don't see that much in the headlines, but I think that's what's going to be coming.
Right. Well, back to the EV batteries, we had mentioned the mining.
Yeah.
And this is what these environmentalists fail to understand. They don't look into what actually goes into actually mining for these things that we need to put into these batteries, the rare earth minerals, and why a lot of the rare earth minerals are coming out of China. When we saw the fall of Afghanistan, we opened up a huge corridor into the Middle East for China to go in and now mine these Arab nations, these Muslim nations, for the rare earth minerals. So we're helping our enemies to destroy us, and they sell them back to us. But the strip mining and how much land is actually destroyed and habitat is destroyed that you may never recover because of the poisoning of the land.
Well, you need a lot of mining. And in the U.S., we actually do a pretty good job restoring land usually. But overseas, where most of these minerals come from, that's not the case. And you need lithium and cobalt and all sorts of different minerals. Copper is another one for electric vehicle batteries. And so if we were to make a push and try and convert everybody to EVs, we would need vast amounts of these new minerals, which means a lot of mines all over the world, which are not good for the environment. The big sea change, though, is what Mr. Trump is going to do. He is basically in the process of rolling back all of these green initiatives. And a big part of this is electric vehicles. He has said he's going to stop the money that is coming from the Inflation Reduction Act and the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which are going to things like wind and solar, EV charging, electric vehicles, carbon dioxide. He wants to eliminate the $7,500 tax credit on new EV sales. And if you read through his executive orders, it really is remarkable what he's doing. This is going to set the green movement back and may completely reverse it and have us go back to sensible energy.
It's funny because you mentioned copper, and just yesterday the Fed was mentioning that they may stop the production of pennies, even though copper pennies are no longer 100% copper. It costs 3 cents to produce a copper penny. And how many people carry loose change around? I mean, I do in my wallet, but not very many people do. So if the government not producing copper pennies then opens up more copper available for making these batteries.
Good. Yeah, I think Elon Musk wants to get rid of these pennies as well. But I mean, they're just huge things in Trump's proposals. He shut down all leasing of land offshore for wind turbines. And the U.S. government owns all the land from 3 miles to 200 miles out from our coasts. And so you have to get a lease if you're going to put up a wind turbine. And he said, as part of his executive order, we're just going to stop that. And we're going to review all of the offshore wind that has already been installed. And this has had a tremendous impact. The stock prices of all these wind turbine companies went down this week. Companies have said, let's see if I can get one. There's a company called Prysmian, an Italian company that was going to build a U.S. cable factory to build cables for offshore wind. They have just abandoned their plans. Ørsted, a Danish wind supplier, just took a $1.7 billion impairment charge. All of their assets here in the U.S. for wind are basically worthless now. This is a big change. We have all these states, California, and then on the East Coast, Maryland, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, South Carolina, Rhode Island, Virginia, that all have these wind systems planned or in process. And they're going to have to go back and their programs are going to be reviewed by the federal government and maybe halted if they're not yet started. So just a huge change.
Yeah, I was also talking last week, and I forget the name of the county. It might have been Montgomery County in Maryland, and another. 2 counties are actually fighting a wind company that wanted to put a wind farm off the coast of Maryland. And both of them said, no, you're not doing it. And so there's wind company said, well, I'm bigger and badder than you. I'm going to sue you. And they said, oh, yeah, well, go ahead. So they challenged him. And it looks like with Trump's policy in place, it may benefit those two counties by an executive order.
Well, it might. You know, we have rising opposition to wind and solar really all over the country right now. There are many, many places. Oklahoma, they had several hundred people that, earlier this month come to the legislature and asked for a ban on wind and solar installations. And Oklahoma is like the #3 wind state in the country. But the local folks, the local towns, the farmers where these wind systems go in, don't really want them there. In Illinois, we had half the counties in Illinois, more than 20 counties that said we don't want wind and solar anymore. Well, the state just said, well, we're just going to ignore that. We passed a law that says we're just going to overrule all the counties. But this is getting to be kind of a rising tide of opposition, as you mentioned, Maryland. And all of this is will be playing on what Mr. Trump is trying to do as well.
Yeah. I mean, finally, the tide has turned and common sense seems to be coming to our nation. What do you see with everything that's going into place? Do you actually see that the rest of the nation may start to fall into place, or do you see the green movement doing a major push back to try to wake us up again?
Oh, yeah, there'll be many, many lawsuits on all of this sort of stuff. But Mr. Trump is he's turning around the federal government. Let me give you a couple more examples. As part of his executive orders, he disbanded the Climate Change Support Office in the federal government, which Biden set up. He disbanded the American Climate Corps. He disbanded the Working Group on the Social Cost of Greenhouse Gases. This was all done on the first day. He's also asked the EPA to review the 2009 endangerment finding, in which the EPA concluded that carbon dioxide endangered the health of U.S. citizens. He wants Lee Zeldin to point out to him whether this is still of continuing applicability. And this is the basis for regulating carbon dioxide emissions in the U.S. He also has withdrawn again from the Paris Climate Accords. And he's sending a written notice over to the United Nations. And he also said we're not going to fund any climate stuff around the globe. We just had a COP29 United Nations conference that wants $300 billion a year from the wealthy nations. Well, the United States isn't going to put anything into that. So I don't know if they're going to get that all from Netherlands or where they're going to do it from, but I don't think that's going to happen either. But the changes are monumental that he's putting into place. But you're right, there's going to be a big, big fight, many, many lawsuits. What he does need is for Congress to pass some acts that limit the money from the Inflation Reduction Act and the, the other act, the Infrastructure Investment Act. And that will really impact what's going on with renewables as well.
Well, it's a start. It is a start, and there's a big dent that needs to be made. And I think he started to do that dent, and it's glad. It's a good thing to see. I mean, I have to laugh. My husband and I were heading downtown one day, and we were behind a Tesla, and we come over the drawbridge. We hit the traffic light, and we're stalled. Well, the Tesla ran out of electric.
Oh no!
And he ended up rolling down the bridge, off the bridge, into a parking spot on the other side. He was able to get out of traffic. But I mean, what do you do if you run out of electricity on an electric vehicle? With mine, I can get a can of gas and keep a can of gas in the back of the car. I can hoof it to a nearby gas station. But how do you push your car to a nearby EV charging station?
Yeah, I think they're selling little diesel generators now you can put in your trunk to charge up your EV if it goes out. But yeah, and if you're in an area that's hurricane prone or fire prone, I wouldn't want to be trying to escape with an EV. That might be a bad idea. And again, I'm not against electric vehicles. We just shouldn't be subsidizing them. We shouldn't be giving them $7,500. We shouldn't be subsidizing batteries. We shouldn't be subsidizing EV charging, all on the idea that we can stop the oceans from rising or stop temperatures from going up. That is modern superstition. Let's let EVs get better, let them compete in the market, and if people buy them, that's fine.
That's the biggest thing I said. Government should not be telling us what to buy. From toilet seats,
I believe in a
light
free
bulbs,
market.
cars, The free market should rule what the public wants and not
Yep.
what government dictates us to purchase. Go ahead, Curtis. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say basically that, we believe in a free market system. It's called capitalism. And unfortunately, our brothers and sisters on the left don't believe in that.
No, there is an effort to tell everybody what to do from the left side of things. You got to do this. You got to do this. We know what's better for you. And by the way, the president also in his executive orders is eliminating a lot of the efficiency regulations on dishwashers, stoves, and furnaces. He's going to leave that up to the market. People can buy the ones they like that are efficient and buy other ones that have different features instead of the Department of Energy imposing and saying you can't buy these stoves. We're just going to take those off the market. They're not efficient enough. So there's an awful lot of rollback going on right now.
Yeah, I want the incandescent light bulb to come back.
Well, the LED ones aren't bad, but some of these things, they say they last 8 years, but I keep finding these things have died after 3 or 4 years. So I don't believe the hype.
3 or 4 years. I mean, the last time I put an LED light into my mom's lamp, I think it lasted 6 months.
Okay.
I put an incandescent in there. I change it maybe once or twice, once a year or twice every 2 years. I mean, I'm sorry. The incandescent light bulb lasted longer and gave better light. But the ones that they want us to use give off, I understand, a yellow light, which is not, our eyes are not accustomed to it. Our brain reads it wrong. So I don't know about these LED lights. I'm not a fan of them.
Well, these changes from Trump are huge, huge, huge. It's going. I've just written an article I'm looking to get published called "Trump Drops a Bomb on Renewable Energy," and that's what he's done really with all of these mandates, and they're all going to be challenged in court. If you can get some things through Congress, that would be great. And at least for 4 years, we're going to swing back to sensible policy.
And that's a huge amen for that. There's so much more we can be talking to. I'm looking down. We're bound to our last couple of minutes to the show. You've got the book out about the green breakdown and your prediction about the collapse of the renewable energy. And so far, everything you've written in your book is starting to come to fruition. You should be very proud about that.
Well, some of it's a little early, and this is going to take a few decades yet for the world to get back to what's sensible. And in addition, we need to shake people out of this fear of man-made global warming. But the Green Breakdown is a fun read. It's a color paperback. There's a cartoon at the front of each chapter. It's got all kinds of things like in Miami, where a Miami newspaper said that global warming makes people cheat on their mate. That kind of stuff. Real headlines like that. In Sweden, they have a guy who does presentations said we all should be trying human flesh to try and stop global warming. I mean, these things you would not believe these, but they are real stories. So in addition to the facts and economics about energy from home appliances to power plants to EVs, it's got a lot of fun things in there to read. And people need to read it to get a little more of the real story.
Well, it reminds me of a cartoon someone sent me today. I think it might have been on Facebook, but it was two women and they're screaming at this cat as the cat's got a bowl of food in front of it. You shouldn't be eating meat. You should be eating something plant-based. And the cat looks and goes, it's plant-based. They go, oh yeah, which plant? The meat packing plant.
Yeah, well, that's another thing. Again, meat has pluses and minuses. One of the things about meat, though, is the history is as nations get wealthier, they eat more and more meat. The world is eating about 4 or 5 times as much meat as it did in 1960. And in China, for example, they're eating 16 times more meat now than they did 50 years ago. So meat has some health issues, but it's also very nutritious. And people that think we're going to turn around and stop everybody from eating meat, that's just not going to happen.
No, and I'm sorry, I'm not eating a bunch of bugs either.
Yeah.
Steve, do you think there'd be any other better time for us to go start building nuclear plants than now under Trump?
I think nuclear plants have some potential. We have a lot of small nuclear projects going on. I'm a little bit skeptical because the numbers I see, nuclear today is very expensive compared to natural gas, maybe 5 times as much. It takes 3 times longer to build, that kind of thing. If the new modular nuclear plants, the small ones, can be faster and can achieve cost reductions, then that would be great. But I'm still waiting to see. Usually if I take a small plant like 200 or 300 megawatt and I add up a bunch of them to get to the size of a nuclear, the cost doesn't seem to be much better. So we really need some cost breakthroughs, and we also need regulations to be reduced. Hopefully the Trump administration will do that as well.
And the reason why I asked that, because we have nuclear power on our aircraft carriers. That's like a
we do. Yeah, it is possible that maybe ships could be powered by small reactors at some point, or even they're talking about using artificial intelligence and using small reactors for those. We'll just see. They have to get the cost down. We got to get the regulations out of the system. And but there is great potential for nuclear, I think, going forward. But we need some breakthroughs.
Well, Steve, I want to thank you for joining us. People can find you at your website, which is stevegorman.com, and look at all the books, because the Green Breakdown is not the only book. It is the latest, but not the only one. And we welcome you back anytime.
Well, thank you, Ann. And Curtis, great to join you. Keep up the good work.
All right.
Thank you. All right. Check it out, stevegorman.com. We're down to our last few minutes, and it's been a really, really fast show. We'll be back next week. We have Michael Letts with us from Invest, and that's what we got for today. So I say to everyone, good night, and God bless.
Stay warm.
I'm praying for this land I love, America, America, the home of the free. But there are people making plans to change America. They've no respect for her or what matters most to me. That's why I stand for the flag and I kneel at the cross. Mourn for the friends I have loved and lost. And I still believe in God we trust, and the freedom our forefathers granted us. I hope it's not too late to save America. Do you hear our battle cry across America? We've got to rescue her. You know it's up to me and you to see the truth behind their lies. Don't change America. God bless America and the red, white, and blue. Why I stand for the flag and I kneel at the cross. Mourn for the friends I have loved and lost. And I still believe in God we trust, and the freedom our forefathers granted us. I hope it's not too late to save America. That's why we America. Let's save America. Together we can save America.